Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Potomac and Chesapeake Association for College Admission Counseling Virtual College Fair. Thank you so much for joining us. And just a few housekeeping announcements before we get started. We have a great presentation and panel for you today. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time throughout the presentation. This is a webinar, so your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening today, so be sure to go and sign up for more. And this presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at strivescan.com/PCACAC. That's PCACAC. It's a bit of a mouthful there. I'd like to turn it over to our wonderful presenters. So back over to you, James. You are muted, James.
Thanks so much. We are so excited to be here with you and to have you with us for our first Potomac and Chesapeake College Fair, and also for this panel discussion to really kick us off. This panel discussion is just to get us started and have us talk a little bit about what the college search and timeline process looks like, and to be able to give some great advice from different colleges that represent different types of institutions and also different voices from the field of admissions. So just to give you an overlay, we'll get started now. We'll have our presentation and we'll also follow that with a very brief Q&A led by our moderator, Anne-Marie Strauss. So as we get started here, we again want to just give you some introductions about who we are, a little bit about our types of institutions, not necessarily into the nuts and bolts of the institutions that we represent, but just to give you an idea of what types of schools are represented. So again, I'm James Massey, and I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at University of Maryland, College Park. College Park is a flagship institution. When you think about types of institutions, this is large, state-level institution that typically offers depth and breadth in terms of majors. They may be organized or structured a little bit different from school to school. But for example, for a large institution like ours, each one of our majors, we have over 100, are actually housed within academic colleges, which breaks it down to be a little bit smaller for students to have their own deans and faculty members and administrators that are just responsible to you, so that you'll be able to seek out those types of questions and answers that you need that will guide you through your time at your institution. You also have lots of resources. You typically will have hundreds of organizations to choose from, to be a part of in terms of meeting students or finding things that really speak to your passion. You'll also have depth and breadth in terms of sports. Typically larger schools like a flagship might be Division I for those that are student athletes out there and looking for like levels of competitiveness that you may be looking for. And also you'll find that larger schools might be Research I institutions, which means that there's a certain level of research dollars that are poured into the institution or that faculty members are engaged in terms of what they're doing. And so, if you're thinking large school spirit, a large flagship type of institution might be something that you're interested in. It also has an obligation to really serve the state. So at the University of Maryland, for example, we're the flagship of the state of Maryland. So we are absolutely dedicated to those that are residents of our state. You'll typically find there are more in-state than out-of-state students, but there are a mix there. You also may have students that are drawn from across the country because they look at that school as representative of that particular state, or they may have particular majors that are of interest to them. And you also may have a mix of international students. You also may find a great deal of diversity in terms of your student body. It's representative typically, when you're thinking about seeing all different types of students, which really helps to push the boundaries of what many students might be used to, depending upon if you're coming from a small town and looking for that larger experience, or looking to really meet people that look very, very different than you do, or may have had a very, very different upbringing or experience than you did. So it really does expose students to great opportunities. You also have great alumni ties typically that may perhaps give you access to different types of internships and such. But again, just thinking about the different schools, every school has its different flavor, but if you're thinking about large school spirit, perhaps a flagship or a state public institution might be for you. So with that, I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Rebecca Laplante.
Hello, everyone. I definitely love to share my greetings and welcome to you all participating this afternoon, learning more about the college search process. So as James said, my name is Rebecca Laplante. I am the Director of Freshman Recruitment at Radford University. And Radford University is a great example of a medium-sized public institution here in our state of Virginia, but also a lot of similarities with the other state medium-sized public institutions. We're what's considered a comprehensive institution representing over 100 majors and programs, and so many things that James described about that large flagship school and that size institution is very similar to a school that is considered a medium-sized public institution, just on a smaller scale. So we actually do have Division I athletics at Radford at a school, that medium-sized institution of this nature. We definitely have so many of the resources and programs that are going to be very important to students as they're looking for that community. And I think that's something that a lot of medium-sized schools are able to really hang their hat on, the fact that they do their best to provide the number of resources and opportunities for students as similar to a large-scale institution, but then also has that opportunity and is afforded the opportunity to get to know you inside the classroom in a little bit of a smaller scale. Again, just as James described, it's really cool that you have so many varieties of schools that you get to look at and start thinking about in your college search. And we definitely encourage you, as my colleague Alfonso will go next, to look at so many different types of institutions, because you'll find that right now you may be just interested in perhaps one or the other, but then as you start to expand that search process, you may find some things at many different types of institutions that really give you really a nice opportunity to look at the different varieties that are out there. A lot of the medium-sized public institutions that are more similar to my school were also founded for a very specific reason. For us, it was teacher education many years ago. So that was definitely what we hung our hat on in the beginning of our story, as we expanded from an all-women's school to becoming co-ed later on. So again, lots of variety of those types of things that you can look at with the history, but very important and most important is where a school's going and what their future and how their plans are aligned with what you're looking for in an institution. But yeah, I think just thinking about so many of the similarities you heard on the large flagship institution, the more regionally based, medium-sized public institutions that I represent today are also going to provide so many of those things. But again, a little bit smaller scale, a little bit more medium-sized atmosphere, if you will. Alfonso, I will hand it over to you now.
All right, thanks, Ms. LaPlante. So good afternoon again, everyone. My name is Alonzo Garrick, and I serve as Executive Director of Admissions at Virginia State University. So also, like Radford, we're located in Virginia, but it's a little more central Virginia. We're located in Petersburg, which is a small-sized city, about 30 miles or so south of Richmond, Virginia, our state's capital, about a 2-hour ride south of Washington, D.C., if that helps put us kind of geographically in your mind. But Virginia State University is one of the nation's historically Black colleges and universities. Right now, there's just shy of over 100 of HBCUs that exist in the United States. This is a designation we were given by the federal government because institutions that were founded prior to the Civil Rights Act in 1964 that had a primary focus in educating students identified as Black and African American. Since then, those core foundations, these institutions have provided education opportunities to a wide range of people, walks of life, lived experiences, and racial ethnic backgrounds throughout our history. But at Virginia State, we're, I would say, more on the smaller to medium size. Like many HBCUs, I would say, very teaching oriented and focused, pretty well regarded for having smaller class sizes, more teacher attention, things of that nature. And we like to view ourselves at Virginia State as being Virginia's opportunity university. So taking students where they are and advancing them to that next steps, wherever that journey may lead them to be. When I say small to medium, think around 4,000 students in total at the graduate and undergraduate levels at the university. There's just over 40 undergraduate programs at the institution, a handful of master's degrees and doctoral programs we offer as well. Traditional college setting in the sprawling urban environment is miles away from our campus setting. In our institution, if you were to talk to students and alumni, like kind of what attracted them to us, it's something you hear a lot of. It's very common with historically Black colleges and universities. It's a family-oriented environment. It's a place where you don't disappear into the numbers, so to speak, like some negative stereotypes of some other institutions and things. But it's one of those things where we're really catered to a demographic and encouraging the demographic and their experiences. A lot of the same resources you hear at other places as well. And one other unique feature I'll add before we get to our next steps of the presentation, we also are an 1890 land grant institution. So the United States, each state was allotted property to create a college or university. So all 50 states have a land grant institution. In addition, 19 states, or maybe 18 states, also have what we call 1890. So essentially an HBCU that is also a land grant institution. So to give you a point of reference within a PCAC region, so in Virginia, Virginia Tech is the land grant institution for the state, and then Virginia State is the other HBCU land grant institution. In the state of Maryland, University of Maryland College Park is the land grant institution, as well as the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is an HBCU, is also a land grant institution. Interestingly enough, Washington, D.C., their one state institution is also an HBCU and a land grant institution, and that's the University of D.C. And then in West Virginia, their land grant institution is West Virginia University, then West Virginia State University. So great histories, great programs, and ties into educational experiences for our students. So I'll pass the torch back to you, Mr. Massey.
Thank you so much, Alfonso. So as you can see, there are lots of different institutions here, even that are represented, to just kind of give you depth and breadth. But also think about the 130 plus institutions that'll be available throughout the college fair as well. So we really encourage you, take the good time, explore them, and really get to know more about each one of them and what they do represent. Again, throughout the rest of the presentation, we'll kind of walk through the high school years. We thought it would be a good way to really segment over to thinking about what should you be doing at each step of the way. And of course, at the very end, we'll explore best fit and campus experiences and how that ties into hopefully your selection of the place that you'll decide to spend those 4 years. So the freshman year, let's get started. It's never too early to plan for your future. We start thinking about this, and perhaps you're having conversations or have been having conversations with your family for years about thinking about the college planning process, or this might be the very first time that you're thinking about it, and you might be a junior and thinking about next year. But it's never too late, and it's also never too early to start planning. But in your freshman year, the things that we typically tell students and families, you want to just kind of be very open. Like, think about being a sponge. You just want to look and see what's out there. You know, what are you interested in versus what really speaks to you? You might find some hidden talents that you have just based upon joining a club with a couple of friends, and it's something that really clicks with you. Or you might find something that you start out with that's really not what speaks to you, but then you fall into something else that you fall in love with. But finding something that really kind of speaks to what your interests are and perhaps what it is that you want to pursue outside of even perhaps what would eventually be your major of choice. Taking a class in a subject that sounds fun. Typically, we do better in things that we're really interested in. And so if it's a class that's kind of off the beaten path a little bit, or if it's something that really just kind of gets you excited, when you're talking with your school counselor, sign up for that class. Taking that class that sounds fun might really lead to perhaps even exploring an area that you might dive into later, or that might eventually become something that you pursue on the collegiate level. Studying hard and getting excellent grades. We tell our students that are freshmen at our institutions the same thing. Freshman year does count, and getting a great foundation set also counts. So you want to make sure that you think about it when you're taking your classes and such. Every grade does count in one way or another. And it's also a great learning experience for you as well. But studying hard, and in some cases, just really developing what great study habits will mean, are going to serve you well throughout your years in high school, and of course, in preparing for college as well. But getting those good grades makes a big difference, because when you get to the point of getting your applications reviewed for admission to our respective universities, we're going to go back, and of course, freshman year does still count, in the same way that we tell you that your senior year counts. So those bookends are still very important in terms of your evaluation, and of course, your successful transition to college as well. And then challenging yourself. You know, you want to step outside of the box. You don't want to do just what's easy because it's easy, but finding some area that you really kind of see yourself growing in. You know, you might start out perhaps taking a particular course, and then in your sophomore year, your junior year, you might go on to take the higher level or the advanced course, but really challenge yourself to think outside of what's just easy in terms of really learning something that might be new. It'll serve you well in the years to come as well. The sophomore year, it gets to be a little bit deeper. You definitely want to dive in and really start exploring more resources. So when we say exploring your resources, it's really asking questions. You're going to develop a great relationship with your school counselors, but you want to go a little bit further. It's not just like, what classes do I need to take to get started in your freshman year? You want to see what else is out there and how can you really take just being a part of perhaps an organization to another level where you really can make a contribution. So in thinking about your extracurricular activities, quality over quantity. We often say that in various different instances when we're talking about students and perhaps the types of things you're involved with. But one thing that you're going to learn is that your time is going to be super valuable. You're not going to have enough of it sometimes to go around, and that can be said about us as well later in life. But you want to make the time that you do have count. And so think about the quality of the experience over the number of experiences that you may have. For example, if you're in an organization, what kind of contribution at the very end of the year can you say that you made? Were you in perhaps a leadership position? Or did you take the lead with some particular project that that organization is known for annually? What kind of significant contribution were you able to make? That'll be very easy to translate once you have to take that look back and list out what kinds of things did I do and what kinds of contributions did I make in those organizations when we look for that information as part of your review process for admission. Take on a challenge. Like sometimes it's those things that some people just say, they back away from, they don't want to do. But knowing that it was challenging and that you're able to succeed will be something great to reflect on and something that will translate well in terms of your application. And also for those that will be looking back to see what kinds of things and obstacles that you overcome, or what did you kind of rise to the occasion of, if you will, of something that was not necessarily very familiar with you. And overall, the spirit of volunteering. Like many students, just about all now, have a certain number of service hours or volunteer hours that you must accomplish, but really make it count. You know, don't just kind of count the hours, but really take in the experience and see that there's something that you can get out of it. And that again will translate well in terms of you sharing your best self in your applications as you prepare for the college process. On the academic side of things, establishing positive relationships. This is very important as well. They're going to serve you well. Think about your teachers, think about your school counselor. These are going to be the folks that are going to help to support you in terms of really writing those letters of recommendation or giving those overviews of how well you did against your peers within your high school years. You want to make sure that you're establishing positive relationships across the board, and it's a great lesson to kind of begin to develop early on in your sophomore year. Understanding that the next year's course selection process, the courses again count. So thinking ahead and asking those questions of your school counselor so that you both are in the same mindset as you're planning for your junior year. Learning about the PSAT testing, National Merit Scholarship programs. It's a very interesting time right now. Many institutions are test optional, but you still want to be familiar about these things. Think about those things that you may have to do. For our students that may be a little bit further along in your planning process, we'll get to that point too about asking questions, but just kind of knowing, like, I took the test many years ago, is that going to be something I need to worry about? These are questions that should be floating around that you want to seek answers to. And again, building on those good study skills and maintaining strong grades. Every grade does count, and just know that it will be considered, but also put your best foot forward across the board and get as much as you can out of your academic experiences across all of your years. So now we're going to jump into the junior year. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca.
Thank you, James. Yeah, so the junior year, we've heard many families and students over the years talk about how this year can be very pivotal, and definitely from the admissions side of the desk, it can be a turning point for a lot of students as well. So we definitely want to remind you how important that junior year is on your transcript specifically. That's the last final year of classes and coursework that we get to see your grades when you're applying to colleges and universities. So it's definitely very important to stay involved and to really maintain those challenging course loads and good grades in junior year. And just think about the fact of, that's going to be the best preparation for you for that senior schedule and that senior achievement, which again, some institutions may be able to see some first marking period grades or first semester grades so that they can continue to review you for certain programs or looking at certain classes from senior year. So everything you're doing junior year will be very, very important to continue that preparation. I think it's also important, James talks so wonderfully about leadership roles and opportunities to be involved. And it's definitely something to keep in mind that we do understand that this last year and a half has been very different for many of you and for all of us, actually, pardon me. So we definitely, but of course, I would not want to be back in high school during this time. So I think about our wonderful high school students very often, because I can only imagine some of the additional challenges and hurdles that you may have experienced, perhaps with some of the extracurricular activities and leadership opportunities that maybe were not quite the same this last year and a half. So I do want you to know that we on the college side also recognize and understand that it may not look as perfect as you would have liked or what your intentions were. So perhaps you actually had a different job, or you were helping out at home with siblings, or doing some other things where your time and commitment was very needed in your family. That can be really what we would see as a leadership role as well. So think outside the box, because we're willing to do that too. And just understand that we're going to take all of those things into consideration as we are looking at you as an applicant to our institution. That doesn't go away from the fact, though, that we do want you to select a challenging course load for senior year. We still want you to stay active in your academics. But think about the things that could perhaps be on your resume. Again, some of the volunteer activities that James mentioned from earlier in your academic career, in your high school career to now. So there are things that students are doing. They're being super creative, and they're finding ways to be engaged, whether it's in their community, within their school or home, or again, just providing support in different ways. Now, many schools have gone to test optional opportunities in recent months and years. So if you are thinking about taking standardized tests based on the institution you're interested in, or in general, that's something that you're planning to do, we do want you to make sure that you're preparing for that during your junior year as well. And your school counselor and your awesome support at your institutions that you're attending will also help you with that. So on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about how this goes into the college search. So as you're thinking now in your junior year, doesn't mean you have to wait till junior year to start being a part of college search activities, but as a college junior, you definitely want to be doing as much of this as you can, just to help you feel prepared and confident in the upcoming decisions that you'll be making. So we definitely encourage you to attend college search related events. These can be events that are perhaps happening on campuses, or they could be events. I know that this event that you're attending right now is a college search related event. So clearly virtual programming has been very much more common in the past several months. And I imagine that will continue to be the case, but I do envision that there will be more opportunities for in-person opportunities in the future. And as those are available, even if they're small scale, very targeted towards a program or major you're interested in, definitely take advantage of those. Those are great ways for you to start narrowing down your list of schools. Researching schools is easier than ever, because there's so much at your fingertips on websites and information that colleges and universities are sending you. But definitely it's fine to pick up the phone. It's fine to send an email to any of the college reps that you would like to hear more from and learn more about the ways things work within the application process, or a specific question you have about that institution. We're all here for you, and we're happy to help answer questions as you are researching institutions. You also want to start thinking about these key factors that are important to you in a college or university. James and Alfonso and I gave a quick little overview of the types of institutions we represent, and there's so many more. So there's lots out there, and we definitely encourage you to think through those and make sure that you are spending as much time as you possibly can, just starting to narrow down what's important to you. Clearly, it's important to talk with your family. You have so many people that are likely supporting you and rooting for you. So definitely taking advice, but being thoughtful about what's important to you at the end of the day will be very helpful as you start narrowing down that list as well. Alfonso is going to talk more about visiting colleges and ways that you can start looking at the fit in just a little bit, but I do want to quickly mention that master calendar, and this is probably this separates maybe the type A people from, but think about the fact that as a family, if you can start a calendar in junior year, it will help you so much. If we're at the end of the junior year for you, that's okay. It's never too late to kind of start getting your ducks in a row with your calendars. And I think on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about your senior year. And that's really where this calendar will also be very beneficial to you. So as you're thinking about all of the things that are going to be happening as you embark upon your senior year, that master calendar will play a huge role. You want to definitely think about the admission and financial aid deadlines. You're going to be requesting letters of recommendation, as James mentioned earlier. Connecting with your teachers and counselors early in the process will benefit you in this phase of the application process. You want to make sure that you're applying for financial aid and meeting scholarship deadlines, and all of these things will go into that master calendar. So as much as you're able to, look ahead and see when things are due and give yourself a little extra time and padding in those deadlines, the more you'll be prepared and ready. And then, of course, I skipped over the first one because I want to really emphasize it now. Review your plan with your school counselor. Your school counselor is your advocate. These individuals are people who want to get to know you. They want to be your support person. They want to be the individual to assist you in this process. Be open-minded. I mean, you should have a plan, don't get me wrong, but be open-minded to the plan that your school counselor may have. They may have some really exciting ideas or suggestions based on a school that they just heard something about, and they want to make sure that you know about it because they know you love this particular activity or you have this particular interest. So definitely be open-minded, and that's not just with your school counselor. There could be other folks that are definitely in your corner helping you with this phase of the process. And then, of course, in the spring semester of your senior year, wow, here we are. This is when you get to the ball's back in your court. You have put all of this time and energy into your application process, into looking at schools, researching institutions, spending time. Again, Alfonso is going to talk a little bit more about how you sort of make these decisions and all the ways you can do this, but then you get to decide which school is going to be the right one for you. And you get to decide what school you're going to make that decision, hopefully by May 1st. We all have our fingers crossed about that one, but we do encourage you to definitely monitor your email, and all of those important deadlines are out there. We're going to all do different things when we send you status updates. It's all different at all of our institutions, but most important, check your email. That will usually give you the information you need on how to find out your decision or how to check your status. As always, you can contact your admissions counselors, and we're always happy to help you. I will now turn it over to Alfonso to tell you more about the different ways you can learn about the colleges and ways you can visit and get to know us.
All right, so a lot of information, right? So it's super exciting. So for us, we talk about this all the time, nonstop. So if we're talking fast and moving quickly, just think we get paid to do this every day. So for you all going through this for the first time, especially, or even if it's your second or third time, or for parents, it's always, a challenge. It is a high, I think we call it a high pressure decision. So definitely understand if it feels like it's a lot. But just know that, again, people like us are there, resources to help you through all this. So one of the areas that I find very interesting in the college search is exploring the best fit. Now, this term fit we use a lot in our industry, but essentially it's, keeping it simple as possible, of all the things that a student may need to be successful, or the things they're looking for in their educational experience, or those opportunities they want to have access to, all those things go into this term we call fit. What is the best fit school for you? Now, with that being said, there may be many best fits, so to speak, right? There's never necessarily one specific ideal. And if you don't hit that one ideal, your life is ruined. That's not the case. But we do use that term fit. So when I think of fit, I think of everything about the experience that you want to be a part of your experience, right? So you see some on our slide here, some of those big ones that really need to be a factor. And I think this is a time where you really, as an individual, as a student, have to have a truly critical and honest reflection with yourself. And I think as a family and as a support group, have a real honest, reflection on what type of environment we believe the student can be most successful in, what resources they need, what experiences they would expect to get out of their education, right? So look at these different topics, and I kind of gloss over them. But location, this seems like the most simple, obvious one, but sometimes you'll think, okay, location, so what does that mean? Some students, location means I gotta get away. I grew up in a small town. I had to go to college in the city. There's no way I'm going to college in a college town. That was me, correct? However, I didn't realize at the time that a university is, like the name sounds, right? It's a small universe. It's like its own city, even if it is in a small town. So so think differently. So location can be geographically, a distance from home. It can be an environment, rural, suburban, urban, you name it. So when we think about what type of environment that I could flourish the best in, what type of environment my student can do the best in, that's something to think about. Academic programs, of course, we're going to say this is their number one priority. You're going to college to study an academic program. That's your only motivation. Of course, there's a lot more to your educational experience, right? But obviously, you want to see what universities and institutions offer the academic programs that are of interest to you. If you know exactly, my whole life I had this one specific plan, make sure the college has that. I got to be a nurse. You want to go to a college that has nursing, obviously, correct? Believe it or not, we get applicants from students who will say, hey, tell me about your nursing program. And then the university has never had nursing, anything far from it, right? You're applying to an art school and they don't have nursing, right? So things like that do happen. So, but it's fine in this exploration process to learn those things, right? So again, those academic programs. And some institutions have unique programs that you can only find in one place. Other institutions may have, so for instance, aviation. I know in Maryland with James, University of Maryland Eastern Shore is the only aviation sciences bachelor's degree in the state of Maryland, for instance, right? So if you're a Maryland resident, I want to stay in state. Again, I'm trickling down my location. I'm in state. I want to study an academic program. You see how that kind of really narrows down the list to help you find that institution of choice. On the flip side, is it aviation you want to do, or is it business? Now, almost everyone has a business program, right? So now it's a little bit more open. So now you can look into other areas. So, following this example of business now, career building opportunities. Now, every institution may not have the same career building opportunities, career services, professional planning if you want to go to graduate or professional school. So what level of resources you need for your next steps beyond the university, exploring what those opportunities may exist. So for instance, some students may think, I want to be an engineer. I want to study in a city. I'm going to go to Virginia Commonwealth University, be right in downtown Richmond, studying engineering, and I could intern at some amazing companies. However, there's also institutions like Virginia Tech. They're in a rural setting, small town, but the majority of their engineering students also intern in co-op. So just because something's located in a specific environment, rural, urban, big, small, it doesn't mean that the career opportunities may not exist in those given places. So I hope those examples give you a good insight to, there's a little bit of work to do, but again, there's multiple ways and multiple pathways to find what an institution will give you those opportunities, give you those resources to be successful. And the same goes along with research, internship opportunities, the size of the school we mentioned earlier. Virginia State's the smaller one in the group tonight. We're about 4,000 with our grads and counted. I forget Radford. What do you, Rebecca? Somewhere around like 15,000 or so. What did you say? 10,000?
10,000 undergraduates.
And then College Park, you're what? Well over 30,000, I'm sure.
30.
So dramatic sizes. So again, that's something to think about as well, right? Well, there's also institutions where there may only be 900 undergraduate students, with the institution. That may be something else of interest that we consider, again, the type of environment and place you want to be in. And then last on this list here, you see extracurricular activities, clubs, sports, organizations, whether it's competing at the highest level of NCAA Division I, or whether it's a club or intramural sports program just to have fun with your friends. For me, I don't know, say for instance, I wrestled in high school. I have to wrestle when I go to college. But there is no way Alonzo Garrick will qualify for Division I wrestling. 2, 3, any of it, right? But is there a club there where there's people who have an interest in that I can connect with? That would be a very critical part of the educational experience for me, right? So again, thinking of those extracurricular things outside of the classroom that you want to be interested in doing. And I mentioned before, we like to think academics are your primary driver, but to be honest, kind of unlike high school, the majority of your time at the university level is going to be outside of the classroom. So all of those things you do to fill your time and your space outside the classroom are equally as valid as important to your overall experience. And the last thing I'll say on this slide is, this is the time you can actually be selfish. No one's going to be mad at you for being selfish. Selfishly think, what is all the opportunities that I want to get out of this experience? I want to live in this type of environment. I want to study this. What can this university provide me? Because again, it's a high pressure decision, but again, it's so many options out there. So it's the perfect time to be selfish and carve out that unique opportunity, a unique experience for you, and see how each of our universities can make that happen for you. So now we can advance to the next slide. Now, through this process and the timeline we've given you, a big part of that, and Rebecca was mentioning especially, was the campus experiences. How do you get exposure to our institutions, our campuses, our environments, to learn about all those things, beyond the brochures and the cute pictures and videos and all that stuff, right? So, traditionally, campus tour has been the game changer for college admissions folks. If I can get you to my campus, I know I can win you over. I just got to get you to show up, right? So obviously, a campus tour, once things are safe and everything and possible, you could visit campus in person. Always going to recommend that. That's a huge one. And on our side, Those emails we send you and text messages, you all know what I'm talking about. It's to get you to come to campus, right? Or to get you to engage with us. So the campus tour is an excellent one. You can get to see the physical lay of the buildings, the infrastructure of campus. You can see everything from the surrounding communities, what types of stores and resources in the surrounding community exist, as well as those that are on campus. And it can be everything from, this campus has a lot of hills. I don't know if I like the way that is. Or this campus is boringly flat. Like, oh my God. Like, again, all those things are part of what you're looking for in your experience. And you want to get a firsthand glimpse at that. Now, as you all know, this past year, living through the pandemic as we were, much of that has been, canceled and postponed, so to speak. So now you're seeing colleges and universities come up with different opportunities, pre-recorded video sessions, Instagram tours, anything we can do to, again, highlight our campus and experiences. So even as we go forward, as our COVID restrictions and things to change, again, I would always remember to try to find a way to physically visit campus, and if not, the next best thing to seeing what campus is like, learning what the campus culture is, the student experience, what are current students doing on campus, things of that nature. Campus events are a great one. Oftentimes, the admissions office, we're going to coordinate events to bring you to campus, to give you exposure. But don't forget, beyond what the admissions office is doing, these institutions have a wide variety of other programs going on. So for instance, is there a performing arts center on that campus? It may be great to go see a theatrical production there. Or is there a concert and that campus happens to be hosting a concert? Or maybe there's a academic lecture series or some special event taking place, a sporting event. Those are also great ways to get exposure to each university's and campus and seeing our culture and opportunities from a different lens. So of course, I want you to talk to me. I'm great. I'm amazing. I'm going to tell you all the things you need to know. But going to these other types of events are ways that you can kind of, get a more, realistic and unscripted view of campus as well. And this is the part that really stresses us out in the admissions world, connecting with our staff and students, right? So I'm going to tell you, definitely talk to my current students, but I don't know what they're going to tell you. So I'm hoping it's good stuff, right? But you want to hear that candid feedback from a peer or a near peer that can let you know, what is it really like being an institution? Like, what was it like living 4 hours away from home? Or school's 10 miles down the road, I don't want to stay close to home. What is it like being a local student on this campus? So all those different scenarios, the students there are living those things. So those are great people to get connected with. And when it comes to the faculty and staff, those are the folks you're going to be involved with on a day-to-day basis. Everything from professors and your academic disciplines to the librarians and the library. They're going to help you with research projects or doing papers, all the way down to the cafeterias and the people that are going to swipe your ID card every day. These are going to be people that are going to be part of your university experience. So as you're able to visit campus or engage with people from those universities, these are going to be great opportunities to learn more about them as well. We see here, inquire about interviews. So again, finding ways to interact and engage with the campus. A lot of universities will either have optional or required interviews. If it's required, obviously the college university will let you know this is a required part of our application process. Others may be optional, maybe another way, another touch point to learn more about you as a candidate, to add some, context to your application. Other times I've seen where they're more informational interviews, where they're not an evaluative part of the process, but more so, how can I get dedicated time with you to learn more about my institution, and I can learn more about you so I can help advocate for what you need to know about your institution. So for instance, if I know that you're traveling from considerable distance from campus, a big one's going to be, how can I get to Virginia State if I'm from Chicago? Oh, guess what? Richmond, Virginia has an international airport. We have shuttle service. We can get you here. So I may not think to tell you that unless we sat down in that interview and I got to know more about you and your things, your interests and expectations of your university experience. And then last but not least, especially this year, social media. We're definitely doing a better job as a whole on the university side, but these are other great ways to engage in a lot of the topics I just discussed. Everything from campus tours, interacting with faculty, staff, alumni, current students, are also great ways. I've seen some boring media where it's just pictures and flyers. I've seen some real interesting ones where some universities, James is laughing at me, but some other universities where they're on TikTok and there's stitch that video and let us know more about you. Like there's different ways to learn more about our institutions and engage with us. And social media is just going to only help exacerbate that even more in the future here. But I'm looking at the clock and I think I am short on time. So I hope I hit everything that's of interest and I'm happy to help with questions.
Great job, Alfonso. Thank you so much. So now we're going to turn it over into our capable hands of Anne-Marie Strauss for a counselor perspective.
Thank you, James and Rebecca and Alfonso. That was amazing and wonderful. My name is Anne-Marie Strauss, and I am the Director of College Counseling at the Bryn Mawr School in Baltimore, Maryland. And that was a wrap up, a quick wrap up of a college search process with lots of great tips from the deans and directors who are actually making the decisions on all of your applications that are out there. I'd just like to, we are short on time. We're gonna finish this in about 3 minutes. So just I think two thoughts from the college counseling perspective or school counseling. If you're in a public school, you will have your school counselor. In independent schools, it might be a college counselor. Some public schools do have the college and career specialists as well. I would, from our perspective, really make it a point to get to know your school counselor, your college and career specialist, your college counselor. We, can provide information to you, but, really make it a point, go out of your way to make an appointment with your person at your school and get to know them. Even if, they're like, I'm so busy, get on their calendar and get to know them, because the more you know them, the more they can help you. So all of us that work in schools want to know the students individually. So definitely take advantage of that. I would say the other thing is, when you're thinking of, oftentimes students are asking their college counselor, well, what are they looking for? What are they looking for in the process? And what I tell them, particularly about, certainly first and foremost is academics, right? They're going to look at your grades. They're going to look at the classes that you took in your high school, where you offered honors and AP courses. If your school offers those courses, did you take advantage of them? You don't have to take all honors and all AP courses to get into college, period. But if they're offered, and if you're getting A's and B's in a college prep regular curriculum, maybe you want to try an honors or an AP course. So definitely be aware of what the curriculum is in your high school and take advantage, lean in, ask your teachers, ask your counselor, can I try an honors? Can I try an AP? And work with the people at your school to do so. So definitely first and foremost is your grades and the curriculum that you're taking. And then as far as the extracurriculars, often I've heard admissions deans talk about initiative and impact. So when you think about your co-curriculars, your extracurriculars, they're looking for what initiative did you take in high school, and what was the impact of your initiative on your community or on a greater community. So initiative, what initiative did you take? And what was the impact of your initiative? So those are just two little tips from the college counseling perspective. We are pretty much wrapping it up now, but for just some final thoughts, maybe Rebecca, Alfonso, and James, can you offer a final thought before we turn it over for them to go to their sessions?
Sure, just quick tips. Think about the process, but don't completely overwhelm yourself. Just know that if you're following a laid out plan in terms of some of the tips that we gave you today, make sure you have your deadlines, know which applications are which essays are which, and just follow that through. And then most importantly, once you're done, know that you put your best effort forward, and then just let it be and wait for the decisions to come back.
I'm just going to really simply say, hang in there. There'll be moments where it feels overwhelming, it feels tough, but just know that we're all here for you. There's so many people that are cheering you on and supporting you through the process. So whether it's your school counselor or the admissions counselor, hang in there. We got you.
Yep, and there will be a college for you. If you're interested in going to a college or university, there's one for you. It'll be affordable. You can make it work. You'll get admitted, and you'll have a good outcome. Just trust in the process. Like James, Rebecca are saying, hang in there. You'll get through it. And then the one thing I forgot to mention on my slide about best fit is that your best fit may not be the best fit that everyone in your high school has. Remember that as well. We oftentimes apply to the same places. I've seen an article of a school in Virginia where half of the graduating class applied to the same selective university. That's great, wish them the best of luck. But again, what's the likelihood of half of a graduating class all having the best fit at the same place? So think about that. Again, your best fit may be different. All right.
Well, I want to thank our wonderful presenters today. And we do have just some final thoughts. When you close this window, there will be a very quick 4-question survey. We'd appreciate any feedback you can provide. This is just one of many sessions happening, so I would encourage you to head to strivescan.com to sign up for more. They do start right at the top of the hour. And in about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as other session recordings at strivescan.com/PCACAC. Again, thank you to our wonderful presenters today and for your work in higher education, and best of luck to all of you out there. Thank you so much.